Recently, I was at the Canadian Math Education Study Group Conference, and the most frequently asked question I had was just how do you begin the process of reforming a course, especially a large-scale course? There is a gigantic gap in the literature in massive course reform. There's not many people that are given the privilege of changing massive courses, but when they are given that privilege and when you do have that opportunity, it's a massive undertaking. And where do you go? I've thought about writing papers, and in fact I have written some papers, but the problem is that there's not a great place to distribute them. And so I have wanted to record something for a long time, and don't usually have the equipment or the technical know-how to do it, or maybe just time, to be honest. But with the semester coming up, I decided just take the plunge. So I'm going to give some of my tips in some upcoming videos about how you can dive into the big project of reforming these massive courses, including the problem that we have in Canada, oftentimes on a pretty small budget with few resources, like few TA resources and few administrative resources. So the first, I think, challenge that you have to confront is how do you lead a teaching team? And that can be hard. That's all I'll say about that, is it can be challenging. You'll often have teaching team members that will not think that there's anything wrong, and in fact, you're kind of making their job harder by changing things. You're gonna have a wide bag of problems that you might confront. But the one core thing I think you have to do is have a core message. So this has been popularized, certainly in the business literature, with Simon Sinek's Start With Why. But it's something that just leaders have done naturally. And I don't know if it's something that makes them a good leader, or it's the other way around, that leadership kind of forces them to have a clear why. But, you know, for example, I think of Maria Montessori in the educational space. And if you're familiar with her work, you can probably name off some of the whys, or some of the reasons why she did this. You know, you must respect the child, or the child learns through natural movement, ideas like that. And so if you're reforming a large group, you really have to, or you're reforming a large course, and you have a teaching team who is going to help you with that, hopefully help you and not hurt you, you need to somehow communicate to them in a very efficient manner why. And that why message, you know, we often think, just like, you know, in teaching, right? We can say it once, and that's not enough. We really have to say it over and over and over and over and over and over again. And all of our training, everything should be built around that why message. I need to get in here and explain a little bit more about what I mean by the why for the instructors. So by this I mean, what is it that the instructors should keep in mind when they're wrestling with your new curriculum or your new approach to the course? What can explain this to them? What can explain the implementation, or their role in the implementation of your course? Like, what is their why within the new version of your course, basically within the changes that you are making? So I don't necessarily mean like their why as a person or as a instructor overall. It doesn't necessarily mean need to be their entire educational mission or even like educational statement. But what you want to think about is, as they're trying to understand and then communicate your changes to students and to TAs or whoever else they're interacting with, what is kind of the dime on which this whole thing is turning? What is the thing that will explain it for them? Okay, so that's really what I mean by the why for the instructors. So something that will explain kind of what you're doing, but more specifically, what their role is in what you are doing. There's so many things that we want to say, especially if we're teaching a big first-year course that has a lot of moving parts. You're redoing assessments, you're redoing the curriculum, you're redoing the textbook, you're thinking about the students differently, you are changing the administrative structure, you're doing all of these things. And so trying to whittle down what you're doing to just like one overarching idea can be really hard. And I'm sure that you have a very solid, pretty complicated, probably teaching philosophy behind all of that. And you've thought about these decisions a lot. That is all going to be really hard for your teaching team to get, and they probably won't care about all of it. There are probably a few core reasons about why you've done the thing that you wanted to do. So, with all of those things in mind, what are my tips for finding a why in kind of a large scale, massive course? Well, one tip that I'd say is find the biggest gap between where your core beliefs are that have informed your design of the course and where your instructional team's core beliefs are. What do they believe and what do you believe? And where is that big gap? The second tip that I would offer is that the respect has to be there for students. And so often that biggest gap does come when you focus on the student and not on the curriculum. So I would focus your attention there. It's probably where the biggest gap is as well. And that care for the student, or that attention even to the student, is going to transform how they look at the curriculum. Whereas if you focus on the curriculum as something driving the change, that's not going to change how they look at the student. Okay, so those are a couple of tips about how to find a why that you can communicate to your instructors. Now, I should say that this isn't necessarily your why overarching. You're going to also have a why for your TAs and for your students as well. And I can talk more about that in future videos. But you're probably forming your instructional team right now, starting to get in touch with them. So this is maybe the first big thing, and maybe the most important thing to focus on. Okay, so good luck. It's massive work, but it's so worthwhile.